Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. On today's show, we're going to be taking questions live from you. If you have a question you want to answer, give that number a call, 888-777-2582. That's too many numbers.
That's it. That's it. Right on your screen there.
First in the news, a message from President Trump today after Russia warned the U.S. against military strikes in Syria. The president said on Twitter, the missiles will be coming.
Yeah, that tweet comes as the United States is getting ready for a military action against Syria. And this time, it looks like America will have some help from its allies. Mark Martin has the story.
In his strategy against the Syrian government, President Trump has made it clear he wants a forceful response, and the administration says it has several options. This time around, the United States might not act alone, instead getting possible support from France, Britain, and Saudi Arabia. A U.S. official says one option is hitting the Assad regime's command and control headquarters for the country's military. Another, strike the locations where chemical weapons are stored.
We're making a decision as to what we do with respect to the horrible attack that was made near Damascus, and it will be met, and it will be met forcefully.
UN Ambassador Nikki Haley tried to secure support in the UN Security Council, but Russia voted no and China abstained. Haley referred to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad as a monster.
The monster who was responsible for these attacks has no conscience. Not even to be shocked by pictures of dead children.
An apparent chemical attack killed many children and dozens of other people in Douma outside of Damascus. Rebels battling Assad control the town.
This is about humanity. We're talking about humanity. And it can't be allowed to happen.
The situation puts President Trump in disagreement with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who alongside Iran is the most powerful ally of Assad. Haley even said Russia has the blood of Syrian children on its hands. The Russian ambassador to the UN warned that a U.S. attack would have grave repercussions. The Assad regime says the reports are not true and the videos are fake. Syrian activists recorded Russian specialists allegedly investigating the attack location. Following that visit, Russia's foreign minister said there were no traces of chlorine or any other chemical substance used against civilians. But despite Russia's objections, it seems clear the U.S. and its allies will soon take action against Assad's government. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thanks, Mark. In other news, a surprising announcement today from a top Republican leader in Washington. Ephraim Graham has this amazing report.
Pat, House Speaker Paul Ryan is not running for re-election this year. Ryan reportedly planned to make that announcement today. But Ryan intends to finish out his term and not leave Congress early. His departure is certain to set off a race to replace him as the leader of House Republicans and possibly the next House Speaker if the GOP keeps control of the House in this year's midterm congressional elections. The White House has taken the position the president does have the ability to fire Robert Mueller.
Again, we've been advised that the president certainly has the power to make that decision. I can't go anything beyond that.
Others have long said only Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein can actually fire Mueller. Many members of Congress have said President Trump should not fire him, and some have introduced legislation to protect him. President Trump has been particularly angry with Mueller's investigation since the FBI raided his personal attorney's office Monday. Pat?
Well, the deal is the Attorney General is supposed to be in charge of all this. And unfortunately, the Attorney General recused himself a long time ago because he had some incidental contact with some Russian along the way. He shouldn't. He certainly is qualified to come back in as Attorney General now. And if he doesn't do it, it seems like to me he ought to resign. But right after him, Rosenstein should be taken out. And the president can certainly fire him, or the Attorney General can fire him. Beyond that, the political fallout about taking Mueller out or Mueller out is a different matter. But I still think that query has gone too far, it's a fishing expedition now in search of a crime. There is no crime. Nothing has been specified. They cannot find a crime. They have spent months and months and months and months digging, and it is distracting. We've got a president who has to be focused on Syria, focused on Iran, focused on North Korea, focused on the things that matter in our economy. And we can't be distracted by this nonsense about Russian involvement in last year's election. It's time that we get on with our life. And, you know, I can't imagine these congressional calls for us to continue this nonsense. It's got to be stopped, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the president has the power to fire him, but it would be political suicide if he does it. So there's some that think what Mueller is doing is pushing Trump as hard as he can to get him to do some outrageous act that will indeed give him grounds to go after him. And this is something we don't want to see. The president is doing a superb job. The economy is good. The manufacturing is up. And the tax cuts are taking effect, and people are happy. And there's a group in Washington that wants to destroy the president. There's no question. That's what it's about. They want it. Was an honest election in our country, and these people who are part of the establishment don't like Trump, and they want him out. That's what it's all about. Ephraim.
Pat, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg will be back in front of Congress today talking about a wide range of issues, including protecting users' personal information and Russian meddling in elections. Tuesday, Texas Senator Ted Cruz told Zuckerberg many Americans feel Facebook and other tech companies are engaged in a pattern of bias against conservatives and political censorship. And he listed a wide variety of examples.
In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community.
I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out in the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias in the work that we do. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
Some in Congress have raised the possibility of regulation of Facebook and other tech companies. For the first time, the Trump administration recently publicly blamed the Russian government for cyber attacks on the United States power grid. The administration charges those attacks stretch back at least 2 years. Our national security correspondent Eric Gonzalez shows us what's being done to protect this vital lifeline.
While most news attention regarding Russia focuses on the interference of the 2016 presidential election, there are other ways the bear is attacking the United States. Inside President Trump's administration's latest sanctions come this startling accusation: Moscow is targeting America's power grid.
Like in Pearl Harbor in December 7th, we were attacked with airplanes and torpedoes coming out of Pearl Harbor. I believe the next December 7th won't be that. It will be rolling blackouts with the Russians turning off our energy.
Representative Don Bacon sits on the House Homeland Security Committee. He says right now credible intelligence shows the Russians are inside our energy grid with the goal cutting power in a time of crisis, not only creating chaos, but making it difficult for us to respond. And the Kremlin has proven it can do it. During the last 2 years, Russian hackers took down power plants inside Ukraine, leaving thousands in the dark.
From a prioritization standpoint, protecting the grid from cyber attacks is substantially high on our priority list.
Energy Secretary Rick Perry told lawmakers that cyber attacks were, quote, literally happening thousands of times a day. Hackers get in by using spear phishing emails, fake messages that come from a known sender that contain malicious links or documents. Once inside energy sector networks, hackers move to gain information like how control systems work. Perry reassured lawmakers the threat is on his radar. Part of his effort is a newly created office to bolster cybersecurity and energy security efforts.
We are fortunate that we haven't had a major consequence of attacks, and thus far we have been successful in identifying. Part of this analysis involves modeling, information sharing, and monitoring.
Congressman Bacon adds we need to let the Russians know there will be a counterpunch for their actions.
The time to respond and prepare is now, not the day or two before we're attacked.
Protecting American electricity from cyber attacks is challenging, not just because the grid contains so many physical and computerized components, but also because it must operate 24 hours a day. Eric Rosales, CBN News.
And Pat, the threat to the power grid is something you've long warned us about.
I have warned because it is so real. You know, an EMP, I tell you what, if somebody exploded a thermonuclear device in the atmosphere over, say, Chicago or the central part of America, say at 1,500 feet, 15,000 feet, 150,000 feet, 15 miles up, wherever it is, up in the atmosphere, and exploded that thing, an EMP blast could literally knock out our grid across America. And it would be like nuclear winter. It would be horrible. We wouldn't be able to get the right food. We couldn't get our, the banking system would shut down. All the stock transactions would cease. And the normal business of our nation would be at a standstill. Now, that's a possibility. Something could come from a solar blast that we've been talking about. It could be a thermonuclear device, but what we're talking about here is just normal hacking that's going on. And this hacking, I might add, Regent University now has a very sophisticated cyber range, and this can train people. And so businesses are sending their so-called C-suite to work on this cyber range to learn how to counter these attacks. And this device is sufficient to show who the attacker is, how to counter it, and to train people in techniques of stopping cyber attacks. Now, if you're interested, and here's the number, it's 1-866-910-76105. That's Regent University, and you can train your own security team at any business, and the FBI is interested, the Navy is interested, and there are various other businesses that are interested right now. So Regent University stands ready to train the next generation of leaders in business so that they will not be subject to this kind of thing.